the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. Hands down one of the most dangerous mountain roads in all of the United States. It lasts 13.5 miles, has over 156 corners, and an elevation of over 14,000 feet. If I told you that someone wanted to turn this mountain into a racetrack, you'd probably think they were crazy. But in order to understand the concept of this video and how it all started, let's rewind the clock back by 219 years, taking us to the year 1806. "1806 was a great year for the United States due to its federal government claiming states like Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. But it was a bit of a different story for American explorer Zebulon Pike. Zebulon Pike was an American brigadier general and explorer who led 2 expeditions to the Louisiana Purchase Territory and then another in New Mexico and Texas during 1807. On November 15, 1806, Zebulon discovered a gigantic summit in the southern front range of the Rocky Mountains about 12 miles west of downtown Colorado Springs. In 1915, a century and some change later, a man named Spencer Penrose paved a path through this range to transform it into a small roadway. This dirt would remain for well off a century until being replaced with tarmac to grant extra traction. But common transportation wasn't the only idea in mind for this path. The primary idea was an automotive race to the top. Ever since that year, this race takes place annually on the 3rd week of June. Over the decades, many professional drivers made a name for themselves by competing and winning the hill climb, like Nobuhiro Tajima in his Suzuki Escudo, Michelle Mouton in her 1984 Audi Sport Quattro, or Akira Kamiyama in his Nissan Skyline R33 GTR. But for today's video, we'll cover my personal favorite Pikes Peak car that ever competed. It was built off of a nimble, low-horsepower Japanese car with a significant history of WRC championships. The car's name is Toyota Celica. The 6th generation Toyota Celica was officially sold to Japan, the United States, and Europe in October of 1993. In 1994, the US got the Celica in ST and GT trims known as the ST202 and a faster, more higher liter 2.0 5SFE engine in a chassis variant known as the ST204. It was looked at by car enthusiasts as a more economical choice if you couldn't afford the newer 4th generation Supra. This Celica caught the eye of a racing driver from New Zealand named Rod Millen, who had just won the Grand National Sport Truck Series 2 times in a row a year prior. The Celica inspired Millen to have a second go-round at the Pikes Peak Hill Climb. His first attempt went relatively smooth, with him acquiring a time of 13 minutes and 58 seconds and 72 milliseconds. 1994 was Rod's chance to re-up himself in Pikes Peak, but him and his team were put at 2 slight setbacks. The first being that the Toyota Celica was a very hefty car to be driven on Pikes Peak. Sure, gutting out the interior was a good choice, but it would only reduce about 400 pounds from its original curb weight of 2560. Secondly, the ideal specs that any Pikes Peak car should have is at least an all-wheel drive drivetrain, while the Celica had an FF drivetrain. Plus, the United States really had no idea of Japan's beefier, more high-performance version of the Celica known as the ST205 GT4. And if they did know about it, it wouldn't have made sense to import it to America with only a few months to spare just for its drivetrain. But Millen had one more option up his sleeve to get as close as he can to bringing a Celica to that year's annual hill climb. Rob Millen made the hasty decision to make an incredibly lightweight tubular frame chassis and a carbon fiber silhouette body that resembled a Celica. The only asset he was able to use from a real Celica was the front windshield. To save face for his drivetrain problem, he made sure that his custom chassis had an all-wheel drive system and used a 5-speed manual X-Track transmission. But the most astonishing part about this custom Celica was its engine. It's known as a 503E, which is a heavily modified race-spec engine that TRD made for private motorsport use. The most notable car that used the 503E was the Toyota IMSA GTP AAR Eagle, which dominated the 1992 and 1993 season of the American Le Mans Series. The 503E engine is consistently misquoted as an alternative 3S GTE engine found in the ST205 Celica and SW20 MR2. This is because the idea behind the 503E was based off of the 3SG series, although the 503 is significantly different compared to the unrelated 3S. It has an exponentially strong iron engine block, a large port cylinder head, and practically half of the engine's components were made out of aluminum to suffice on weight. Personally, I believe that this motor can be considered one of Toyota's most powerful engines ever made. Millen and TRD managed to tune this engine enough to make it reach a maximum potential of 850 horsepower. With all the help from Rod's chassis and the 503's engine tune, his custom-built Celica was ready to crush the hill climb of that year. On Sunday, June 26, 1994, that year's Pikes Peak hill climb kicked off very well, with an additional 3 classes compared to the previous years. Rod Millen entered the Unlimited class, which allowed cars with no restrictions on engine, chassis, or bodywork. He knew he had a tough water break, with the current record of the year being 10 minutes, 5 seconds, and 85 milliseconds set by Robbie Unser in his Chevrolet S10, which competed in the Open Wheel Division class. When the Celica rolled up to the starting point, it bolted off the line at 90 miles an hour only 2 turns into the mountain. Oh, and don't forget, this was before Pikes Peak's road was paved with tarmac. He did that on gravel. By the time he was at the second sector, he was still running strong at 120 miles an hour, but there was a small issue happening as he was driving. Due to the oh-so-large wing on the back of the Silhouette's body, the Celica's aerodynamics would be temporarily warped if the car got any more than 15 degrees of slip angle. Although Millen fought through this mishap by treating the Celica as if it was tuned for gripping, that way it was a smaller possibility of the undercarriage undergoing instability. Still running smooth through the 4th and 5th sector, Rod, the announcer, and everyone on the track knew that this run had the potential to break a record. When Millen reached the 6th and final sector, everyone was right. He ushered in a record-breaking time of 10 minutes, 4 seconds, and 6 milliseconds, which is a second and 79 milliseconds faster than Robbie Unser. This would be a huge achievement for Rod and TRD because it was the first ever Japanese brand to ever get a Pikes Peak record. This day would make Rod Millen a prodigy in Pikes Peak International Hill Climb history. There's a small epilogue to this story. Rod Millen would continue to bring his Celica to each annual hill climb and again won the competition each time, except for 1995. Although he didn't break his official record from 1994, he did make a time of 10 minutes, 13 seconds, and 640 milliseconds in 1996, and 10 minutes, 4 seconds, and 54 milliseconds in 1997. A year later, Hot Wheels would make the first casting of the Pikes Peak Toyota Celica, which would debut in the 1998 First Edition series. They made 3 different versions of this casting, with one being the iconic yellow Pennzoil livery, another being the Pennzoil livery but with orange, yellow, and purple stripes, and the third version being a white Street Tarts livery with red and blue stripes. In 1999 through 2012, the casting would keep getting different paint jobs and liveries, with the final casting in 2012 being a premium, going back to the original 1998 yellow livery with accurate rubber tires in a series known as off-road racing. Millen's world record wouldn't have been broken until 2007 with Nobuhiro Tajima in his Suzuki Sport XL7 Hill Climb Special, reeling in a time of 10 minutes, 1 second, and 408 milliseconds. But by then, Pikes Peak's road was already half paved, which makes Rod Millen the last person to make a record time when the road was still fully gravel. And so, I think we've gone over everything about the Pikes Peak Toyota Celica built by Rod Millen. I hope this video shows one of the reasons why the Toyota Celica has such an immense history in motorsports. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope to see you on the next one.